Alright, today we've got a pretty wild story about someone that effed up in the fact that they forgot they had a prosthetic leg at hospital security. We'll get into that story in just a bit, but first, today I effed up by letting my friend drink my mom's Coke. So, about 10 years ago, my mom died unexpectedly. I'm not sure if this was a thing everywhere, but at that time in the US, Coca-Cola was running this Share a Coke ad campaign. Basically, they printed a bunch of labels on their bottles and said, share a Coke with person's name. People got really into finding a bottle with their name on it. Anyway, the day after she passed, I happened to come across a bottle with my mom's name on it. Her name isn't that common, so I took as one of those she'll always be with you kind of moments. I bought the bottle and stuck it in my fridge because I don't know where you put Coke. I don't like Coke, so there wasn't any risk of me accidentally drinking it. Fast forward to last weekend. That Coke bottle has now been in my fridge for over 10 years. Well, 3 different fridges since it survived 2 moves. I had an old college friend who was coming to visit me for a couple days. Since his flight got delayed, I ran to the store to pick up some stuff for him. He likes Coke, so one of the things I grab is a 6-pack of Coke, which I stick in the fridge. Since I'm not consciously thinking about my mom's weird memorial death Coke on a daily basis, I don't mention to him when I tell him there's Coke in the fridge. 10 minutes later, we're talking in the living room together as he drinks his Coke. While we're talking, I happen to notice my mom's name on the side of the bottle and gasp. Then, out of shock, I start laughing hysterically. It takes me a solid 5 minutes to explain to him what happened through my laughter. My friend comes to the slow realization of why his Coke tasted so flat and is understandably horrified. Feeling guilty, I suggest he finish the Coke and I could just keep the empty bottle. He was even more horrified by this idea, so we eventually decide to just dump the rest of the Coke down the drain. I'm still keeping the empty bottle, and my friend is now laughing with me about the whole thing. I get the sense that he'll probably get a hotel if he's in town again though. So I'm not really familiar with the shelf life of soda. I don't drink it either, but I sincerely hope that you were joking when you offered to just let him finish the bottle of over 10-year-old Coca-Cola. And also, if the bottle is for memorial purposes, put it on a shelf or something. Don't just stick it in the back of your fridge, right? Isn't the point to see it and reflect and remember mom? Just saying. Lone Flamingo commented, sealed cans of soda can randomly spring a leak from seemingly nowhere. I've heard that they can explode, but I don't know if that's just an urban myth or not. But I've seen the leaking myself from trying to collect differently designed cans. Emptying the can might have been for the best. I'm sorry for your friend. Glad your mom didn't poison him, and glad you handled the situation so well. Filling the can with sand or something to keep it steady, and then placing it on a shelf would be a really cute idea. Also, hello, my name is Brendan, and if you guys enjoy these Today I Effed Up videos, it would be so awesome if you left a like or commented down below if you're listening to our podcast. That being said, our next story is, today I effed up by making a clever comment and possibly getting myself unemployed. Wrong time, wrong audience, wrong everything with this one. Situation essentially boiled down to someone on our development team violating company policies by sending out client data out of the company for their test cases. In short, not my problem, until I made it. There you was, at an hour-long meeting, listening to the usual schmuck saying a whole lot of nothing about how things need to change, knowing fully well nothing will. Anyways, in the meeting, he's trying to highlight how it looks on our group on a higher level, and it doesn't look good. So he starts his sentence with, I'll be Frank, and I reflexively respond, and I'll be Patrick, thinking my mic was muted. The way my soul left my body when I saw the little purple flicker on my profile icon showing that my sound went through. Quiet filled the room. Then he kept going, yeah, the senior leadership team has us in hot water. After the meeting ended, I got a calendar notification showing that my one-on-one with him on Friday got moved to an hour from now. Well, freak. Yeah, I think this is probably the end of the road, buddy. Might want to dust off the whole resume after that one. Trixels commented, I got fired from Einstein Bagel Bros when I was 18 because I called in sick after catching the illness from my boss, and my boss told me I had to come in anyways. So I was like, dude, you were literally the person who got me sick. You know I can't work like this. And he said, that's not true. My doctor said I was no longer contagious. So unless you're smarter than a doctor, then you need to get your butt up here. So I said, well, I do have a PhD in metaphysics. He fired me on the spot. I didn't think it would actually go that far, but I didn't give a freak because that job sucked, and plus, the whole interaction was hilarious, and now I get to tell that story every now and then. Our next story is, today I effed up by discovering the emails my father sent to his lover while he was in a marriage with my pregnant mother. Earlier today, I logged into an old email account that used to be my father's email many years ago. I had done this because I was trying to recover my old account in Roblox, and the email that was tied to the Roblox account was my father's old one. After logging into the account, I looked through, trying to find a password recovery email for my Roblox account. Instead, I find several emails containing weird titles to a person I'd never met in my life. Turns out, these emails I had found were from my father and were sent to his lover who he had cheated on my mother with. I felt sick to my stomach. My mother had previously told me that my father had cheated on her while they were still married. Despite this, seeing the actual emails he had sent to his former lover made me feel so disgusted. As I'm typing this, I just cannot stop thinking about those emails, as they really creep me out and have made me dislike my father even more. I know I can't tell my mother that I've seen these emails, as it would be rude of me to bring up old history, and I do not want to upset her. I just needed some place to vent and type this out. So my exact thoughts are actually brought up in the next comment down below, so let's just go ahead and read that. Whiskey Echo Tango commented, "You don't remember your Roblox password, but you do remember your dad's email password? You were looking for a password reset email in the sent folder?" Sammy's8 responded, "For the email, the password for it had been used for different accounts for many years, so it was easy to figure out. As for the Roblox account, I haven't used that account since 2015, so I have zero clue on the password. And for where I found the emails sent by my father, they were in the draft folder for some reason. It had like 60 different drafts left, so I just looked through them out of curiosity, and that's where I found those emails." Our next story is, today I effed up by trying to find the owner of the money I found on the ground. So let's start with this. I've been as poor as a brick the past few years, so much so that sometimes food becomes scarce and no internet to do any of my due homework. Even rent can become too difficult that we get kicked out. Today, when I came back home, I found about $800 just spread in front of the house. It's an apartment complex, so I thought it must be a neighbor that lost so large of a sum. I felt it's too large for it to be a little mistake the owner wouldn't care about, and the pain inflicted on whoever lost it can be severe, especially when I recalled a similar situation when I lost money that I needed for survival, which resulted in one of the most depressing weeks I've ever experienced. So I did what I thought was right. I collected the money from the ground, hid it somewhere near, and then put a piece of paper in the entrance with my number for anyone to call if they've lost money recently. I did this while fighting every devil in my head about keeping it and calling it a day, especially due to the fact that for me, this is a huge sum that could solve so many problems. Also, that this is more than all the money I currently have combined, but the depressing weeks I've been through due to the money I lost kept coming back to the memory, reminding me of how much this money may be needed for its owner. Maybe that's the only money the owner has. Maybe they need it for medicine. Maybe it's the only money they're getting in months. I kept thinking of these reasons not to take it, which are projections of my personal problems throughout my lifetime. Hours go by, someone calls. It's about the lost money, so we said we should meet in front of the house. I ask him how much was lost, and he says $1,000, and he describes a place that's close to the lost money. I was confident that it's his because everything checks out, so I hand it to him from the hidden place, telling him all I found was the $800, so he says he'll be looking up the rest. Then I just told him where exactly I found it and went home. Hours later, I get another call. He's accusing me of pocketing the difference, and then he threatened me to call the police. At that moment, I just wanted to punch my guts. I felt terrible. Neither have I gotten one penny from this, nor is the gesture of taking from my time to help is recognized. This is the worst outcome that I never thought could ever happen after acting morally. Now I think every devil in my head is winning the argument. I should have taken the money, regardless of the compassionate delusions I had. No, OP, you did the right thing for the reasons that you already gave, and you get to go to bed ultimately at night with a clear conscience. You didn't do anything wrong, so if he calls the police, they have no way of proving that you pocketed the money or spent it or anything like that. So you did the right thing. Please don't feel bad about this. Tiltopia commented, "Don't worry about it. Tell him to go to the police. There's no evidence of any wrongdoing. But call him a scumbag and tell him he's lucky he got anything at all. This is just one of those lose faith in humanity moments. You do the right thing and you get nothing but grief and regret." Otherwise, a rival commented, "At age 59, I can attest that I've been kicked in the teeth for just about every kind of thing I've done. Most people view kind deeds as weakness and then try to take advantage of you from there. I still keep trying though. There has to be some good in the world. Our next story is, today I effed up by using dandruff shampoo for the past year. Obviously not just today, but for the past year I've been using dandruff shampoo because I thought I had dandruff. About a year ago, at the end of last winter, I started using dandruff shampoo to try to get rid of those pesky flakes, and when it seemed to help a little bit, I kept at it, using dandruff shampoo every time I washed my hair. Seemed fine, no problems over the warmer months, but after the winter started back up 8 months later, my hair was mysteriously covered in flakes again. It's been driving me crazy all winter and only seemed to get worse. Even right out of the shower, I still had dandruff in my hair. Frankly, it was bad to the point of being embarrassing, and I had to spend time in front of the mirror before I went anywhere trying to get the worst of the flakes. I was being hyper-vigilant about cleaning my hairbrushes, changing my pillowcases. I even bought an air filter in case dust was contributing to the problem. Last week, I finally had enough and started doing some hardcore research. Guess what I found? Apparently, having dry scalp exhibits nearly identical symptoms to having dandruff. One of the only major differences is that with dry scalp, you may notice dry skin patches other places as well. And the kicker? If you have dry scalp, using dandruff shampoo can make it worse. Apparently, the chemicals are harsh on the skin and dry your scalp out even further. I looked up some moisturizing shampoos and bought one right away. I've only taken 2 showers with the gentle moisturizing shampoo, and I'm already seeing way less flaking. Kicking myself because I could have looked this up months ago and saved myself a lot of self-consciousness and itchy scalp. Well, lesson learned, and now because of you sharing your story, hopefully someone listening or reading this in the future will get ahead of the game and not have to deal with this themselves. So, sucks that you had to go through that, but thanks for sharing at least. Kat Cannoli commented, I went through this same journey. Moisturizing shampoo got most of the dryness, and using an oil on my scalp about 10 minutes pre-shower took care of the rest. It's such a relief to find a care routine that works for you. I'm happy you're there. Our next story is, today I effed up by sending my manager pictures of my butt crack. I, 25-year-old female, work in a hospital, and my unit is hosting a 10-week weight loss challenge. Every Monday, everyone texts a picture of their feet on a scale to our manager, who compiles the data and compares percentages of fat loss. This week, after I got out of the shower, I decided to weigh myself and take a picture. I noticed that the scale was reflective and reflecting a very clear image of the underside of my butt crack on the scale, between my feet. I then looked at my previous texts and noticed that I've sent this exact same picture and pose 4 weeks in a row, so she has 4 mirror pictures of my crack. You know, I wouldn't even draw attention to this. Obviously, now that you're aware of it, future pictures, you can make an attempt to cover that up. But don't say, hey, boss, I'm so sorry. I just sent you 4 pictures of my crack. Just play it off. It happens. She assigned the homework and you're doing it. So no harm, no foul. Our next story is, today I effed up by misunderstanding the meaning of a midnight deadline. This happened yesterday. My daughter was selected for an advanced orchestra, and there is an option to submit a recording for a seating audition. The instruction is to submit by midnight, February 24th. I assume that we have the whole day of the 24th to finalize it and submit by 11:59 p.m. to meet the deadline. As you might come to expect, the submission portal was closed when I tried to access it in the evening. I guess the deadline was 12 a.m. on February 24th. The F-up is I didn't reach out and get clarification from the organizer, and now my daughter might be placed in the back of the orchestra even though she worked hard on this audition. We reached out to the organizer hoping that it was a mistake in setting up the deadline, but I guess technically they're correct. My wife is very upset with me as she asked us to submit earlier. We actually made some recording on Saturday, but my daughter wanted to get feedback from her teacher to see how she can improve and re-record on Monday. Throughout my life during school and work, etc., when someone says due by midnight on a day, it usually means that one has that day to work on the task. Lesson learned, need to get exact clarification when deadline is concerned. Update. I've been checking their submission webpage, and there's a posting today that they're allowing people to email their submission video to their ensemble chair by today if they had issues uploading their seating audition video. I think the wording of the original instruction was confusing most people, or they selected the wrong time for the deadline in their Google form. So this is a way for them to fix the mistake without admitting they made a mistake. I promptly resubmitted as soon as I saw the post. I think a lot of people got screwed and misunderstood the submission deadline. Should the deadline have been more clearly specified? Yes, but also, I can't really relate to this because I don't operate this way. Waiting till the last minute to submit assignments has just never been my MO, so I would just say at least give yourself a one-day buffer to account for any kind of tomfoolery like this happening. So that would just be my advice, but again, people are gonna wait. It's just the way people are, right? Glad it worked out though. Lip79 commented, I hate those deadlines written that way. If you want it due on Monday, then say due by 11:59 p.m. Monday or 12:01 a.m. Tuesday. That way it gets rid of situations like this. Raylick777 commented, I was gonna pop in and say this exact thing. Always make your deadlines inclusive. Namely, every part of the date and time of a deadline needs to be valid within the bounds of the time frame. Saying midnight on such and such date means that such and such date actually falls outside the time frame. 11:59 p.m. the day prior is entirely unambiguous. Our next story is, today I effed up by accidentally turning my boss's fancy coffee machine into a chocolate fountain. So this happened yesterday, and I'm still cringing hard enough to power a small city. I work in a small office, think 10 people, open plan, everyone knows everyone's business. My boss is this super chill guy, but he's got one obsession, his high-end coffee machine. It's one of those sleek, chrome beasts with more buttons than my microwave, and he's always bragging about how it's the backbone of the office. I don't even drink coffee, so I've never touched it. Until yesterday. We had a team meeting scheduled, and my boss asked me to whip up some drinks while he finished a call. I figured, how hard could it be? I've seen him use it a million times. Spoiler, very hard. I grabbed a pod from the little basket next to it. Black packaging, looked fancy, seemed safe. Popped it in, what I thought was the espresso button, and waited. Except instead of coffee, this thick brown sludge starts oozing out. At first I thought, oh, maybe it's just strong, but then it kept coming. Way too much, way too slow, and it smelled sweet, like Hershey's syrup sweet. Turns out, I didn't grab a coffee pod. I grabbed one of those hot chocolate pods his kid must have left behind from Take Your Kid to Work Day last week. But here's where it gets worse. I panicked. The machine's making this gurgling noise, chocolate's pooling on the counter, and I think I'll just hit stop. Except I don't know which button is stop, so I mash a bunch of them like I'm playing whack-a-mole. Big mistake. The thing starts hissing, then spraying hot chocolate everywhere. On me, the counter, the wall, even the ceiling somehow. It's like a Willy Wonka disaster scene, and I'm the idiot Oompa Loompa. By the time my boss walks in, I'm standing there covered in sticky brown goo, holding a dripping mug, with his precious machine looking like it just survived a cocoa apocalypse. He doesn't say anything at first, just stares, mouth open. Then he goes, "Did you break it?" I mumble something about hot chocolate pods, and he starts laughing so hard he has to sit down. The rest of the team comes in, sees the mess, and now I'm the office legend, but not in a good way. Turns out, the machine's fine after a deep clean, which I had to do, but my boss keeps calling me Chocolad, and someone stuck a post-it on my back that says Barista of the Year. I'm still finding chocolate in random places, and I've learned my lesson. I'm sticking to water from now on. This could have ended so much worse. At least your boss is being a good sport about it. But the finding chocolate in random places, that must have been one heck of an explosion, pun intended. I invented the iPod, commented. I had the opposite happen at my first job. My boss told me to make the coffee when I got to the office in the morning. We had one of those terrible drip coffee makers they had back in the 1980s. As a 16-year-old, non-coffee drinker, I figured the first step was to clean everything thoroughly, and then just follow the directions. Readers, that coffee maker had never been cleaned before, and nobody had ever read the directions, much less bothered to follow them carefully. The first coworker who came in took their customary mug of coffee, headed to their cubicle, and immediately came back and asked me, "Did you make this coffee?" I was so sure I'd done something wrong. I ended up being coffee guy all that summer. Our next story is, today I effed up by trying to help my mom get a partial refund of $63 from U-Haul. First time posting on Reddit, so here it goes. The parties involved are Employee 1, Chris, the guy that helped with our first U-Haul rental. Employee 2, Mark, guy that helped with our second rental. Employee 3, Paul, guy that we spoke to briefly when talking about the problem. Employee 4, Noah, guy that was there for his afternoon shift. Assistant manager, Emily, helped us with the issue. Boss or manager, Jack, approved Emily's actions. All names are fake since I don't want them to get in trouble. The issue is currently still ongoing, but I'm hopeful that it will be resolved. It's a bit long, so bear with me. My mother, female 54, and I, female 28, rented a U-Haul to transport some pallets of flooring to a house that needed renovation. The first time we went to this location was back in January for the same reason above. The trip in January went well, even though it was our first time ever renting a truck, because the employee, Chris, was very helpful and nice. Chris helped us with all the paperwork and also showed us how to start the truck and where the emergency brake was. My mother was very happy and proudly told some of her friends and coworkers that she had successfully driven a big moving truck like this for the first time ever. The issue occurred the second time we went to rent a truck. A different employee, Mark, had helped us with the paperwork, and we estimated the trip to take about 18 miles, but since we were not completely sure, he put it down for 20 miles instead, which we were fine with. We also got the higher rate to have the deadline changed to the day after, as we were not sure if we could finish moving the items in time. We managed to get the goods and unload the items at the house in a timely fashion, so we ended up returning to the truck later that same day around 7 p.m. We had signed the contract around 1:30 p.m. The original contract's estimated amount to be paid was about $86. I had also read reviews on the place previously and remembered to take before and after photos of the dashboard that had the mileage and fuel gauge, which turned out to be very much needed. I did this for both trips. A few days passed and my mother noticed that the charge to her credit card was for much higher than expected, $145. And when we called to check, they informed us that they charged her for the amount of fuel missing from the fuel gauge shown on the contract. The problem was the fuel gauge on the contract was wrong. We had received the keys for the truck with a fuel gauge around 1/4 and returned the truck with a similar fuel gauge around 1/4. The contract we had signed showed that the initial fuel gauge was supposed to be 5/8. Since I had the photos of before and after the trip, they told me that I could go in and show them the pictures and they would give me a refund of the extra amount charged. I drove there with my original contract and showed the assistant manager, Emily, the photos, and she saw that it was indeed an error and attempted to fix the issue. She first questioned me and told me that apparently there was supposed to be a link that should have been sent to the phone on file, and that we were supposed to confirm that the mileage and fuel gauge were correct since there was a way to fix it on there. I told her that it was our second time ever renting a truck and that Mark had never told us about this link, which was true. I think maybe we got lucky the first time that it was correct, or Chris had checked it himself when he came out to help us with starting the truck. Emily then asked which employee handled our documents, and Paul answered it was Mark. She did not seem surprised. Anyways, she proceeded to redo the return and also got the authorization from the boss or actual manager, Jack, there to confirm. She input all of the new info with the photos I provided to her showing the mileage and fuel gauge. This is where I slightly freaked up. I did not realize at the time, but she had messed up the refund process somewhere as we somehow got charged an extra 83 cents instead of getting a refund. I had seen all of the interactions between the staff and had also approved the refund of $145, original charge, on the credit card machine. I very clearly saw a negative $145 on the machine and tapped approve on the machine. She gave me a new receipt and told me that the additional 83 cents was to offset what I still owed after she fixed the issues. The new receipt showed that we only traveled 16 miles out of the original estimated 20 miles, and the fuel gauge was around 1/4. I was very polite and thanked her for helping me out. I wanted to get my original documents back, but Emily saw that she had already thrown my copy into the trash, and it was covered in coffee stains. I ended up getting her to print a new copy of the original incorrect contract as the email on file was wrong, and I had not received the original contract via email. She helped correct that as well, and I left. I gave the copy of the original and the new receipt to my mother. My mother does taxes, and she looked at the receipt and saw that something was not right, as she should not be getting charged more if they already owe her money. It should have been subtracted from the amount that was already charged, and she should get a refund of the excess amount paid, or the entire charge should have been refunded, with the new corrected charge sent after. I called them the next morning and was transferred to talk with Emily as she had handled the return. She remembered me and tried to explain away the trivial extra charge, but did not listen to our side clearly. We tried to tell her that the fuel gauge diagram and the mileage was indeed corrected, but there was still an additional charge of $63 for fuel, 14 gallons. The conversation did get a bit heated, and Emily ended up putting us on hold, and then the call dropped. I think she did not want to hear us out, as we had talked over each other a bit, and she had told us the refund would take a few days. She also tried to insinuate that we were trying to get out of paying for the truck at all, which was not the case. My mother and I drove to the U-Haul place and explained the situation to the employee there, Noah. He told us that there was a manager or assistant manager, probably Emily since I'd spoken to her earlier, but they had already left since their shift was done. I suspect Emily never wanted to continue the call. I was still holding out originally, waiting for her to talk again before the call dropped. Noah then had to call his boss and put him on speakerphone so that I could talk to him and explain things clearly. Now we need to wait to see if they can sort out the mess, as someone should call me back in 48 hours to resolve the issue. So, today I effed up for wanting a partial refund of the $63 that U-Haul incorrectly charged me for fuel. Yeah, this is some mighty awful unprofessionalism on the part of the U-Haul employees. You would think it would be easier for them to just issue the refund and rinse their hands and be done with it, but apparently that's not the case. SCO veteran retired commented, "Go to the U-Haul website and make a complaint with corporate and leave a negative review. I got a refund of money I was overcharged by doing that several years ago." Our next story is, today I effed up by forgetting I had a prosthetic leg at hospital security. So this happened yesterday when I was taking my daughter to the hospital for a kidney checkup. I've been an amputee for over a decade, so you'd think I'd have the whole security thing down by now. But apparently my brain just decided to take a vacation. I walk up to security, toss my keys and phone into the bin on the conveyor, tell my daughter to go first, and then confidently stride through like I own the place. Beep! The security guard looks up. Step back and try again. Weird, but okay. I step back and walk through again. Beep! Now I'm standing there, confused as heck, while the guard eyes me suspiciously. "You got anything in your pocket?" I slap my thighs, trying to be helpful. "Nope," he frowns. "Any metal implants?" "Nope," I say, like an idiot. Me and the guard just stare at each other. My daughter stares at me. The lady in line behind us stares at me. Then it finally hits me. Oh, right. I don't have a right leg. I start laughing like an idiot and lift my pant leg, showing off my prosthetic. The security guy shakes his head like he's seen it all, and my daughter just looked like, "Yep, that's my dad." Long story short, I get the usual wand scan and pat down while my kid shakes her head in disappointment. Meanwhile, the lady behind me in line is absolutely losing it. Ozd commented, "I went to a doctor once, my first time at the office. They asked about my family's medical history. I told them dad's side gets Alzheimer's, mom's side's Parkinson's. After about 20 seconds, oh, but I'm adopted, so I'm not too sure." Our next story is, today I effed up by accidentally sending my boss a screenshot of our group chat, roasting him. So yeah, today was one of those days where I wish I could just disappear into the void and never return. Here's how it went down. I work in a pretty chill office, and my team has a group chat where we vent about work stuff. It's mostly harmless, but sometimes we get a little spicy. My boss, let's call him Dave, is a nice guy, but has a habit of micromanaging to the point where it drives us all insane. Naturally, Dave has become the star of many of our rants. Fast forward to this morning. Dave sent out one of his classic 8-paragraph emails about how we need to optimize our workflow and do more work with fewer resources. The group chat immediately exploded. Someone called him Captain Obvious. Another person said he must have a PhD in stating the obvious. And I, being the comedian of the group, said Dave's emails are like a TED Talk for people who love the sound of their own voice. I was feeling pretty proud of that one, so I took a screenshot to send to my best friend who doesn't work with us. I thought it would give her a laugh, but in my haste, I accidentally pasted it into an email to Dave. I realized my mistake immediately, 0.2 seconds after hitting send. My stomach dropped, my palms got sweaty, and I immediately Googled how to recall an email in Outlook. Turns out you can't unless the recipient hasn't opened it yet. And of course, Dave had already opened it. About 10 minutes later, I got a Teams message from him. It simply said, "Can we talk?" I considered faking my own death, but instead, I dragged myself to his office. He was sitting there, looking at me with this weird mix of disappointment and amusement. He said, "So, Captain Obvious, huh?" I wanted to melt into the floor. I apologized profusely, told him it was meant for a friend, and that we were just blowing off steam. To my surprise, he started laughing. He said, "Look, I get it. I know I can be a lot, but maybe next time, just talk to me instead of roasting me in a group chat." I agreed, obviously, and he told me to be more careful with screenshots in the future. Crisis mostly averted, but now I have to live with the fact that my boss knows we all talk mad crap about him behind his back. So, a couple things to unpack here. First of all, good for you, OP, for just sucking it up and facing the music and going to meet the boss anyway. And secondly, obviously this could have gone so much worse. Thankfully, your boss has somewhat of a sense of humor and took it like a pro. So, yeah, it's a bit of an F-up. That's why you use Gmail, because you get that 5-second window to recall an email if you catch the mistake fast enough. But overall, good story. Until it's deleted responded, to all the young adults just starting out in the workplace, if you want to get ahead in your career, never talk crap about your employer, coworkers, customers, or products in a way that can be linked back to you. Not only did OP out themselves, but they also outed their coworkers. Also, you need to assume all communications on work equipment and services are being actively monitored and/or recorded for compliance. Our next story is, today I effed up by scaring fellow passengers on an international flight. Compulsory, this didn't happen today, but a few days back. Anyhow, barely being able to afford my first international trip, I booked the cheapest airline. But not wanting to be too cheap, I paid extra and got the emergency seats because their leg space was atrocious otherwise. So I'm sitting in the middle seat of the right side of the plane. Halfway through the flight, I decide to sleep, so I take off my noise-canceling headphones and put on my eye mask. Suddenly, I hear this weird whooshing sound. I ignore it, but it gets a little louder, and now the people around me notice it too. I try to put my hand over the emergency exit door to confirm if it's air leaking in or something by any chance. I don't feel any air coming in, but the sound gets a little louder. So I call the steward and he's confused. "Let me ask my senior," he says, and moves to the front of the plane. Now the sound is continuing intermittently, and I'm in a panic talking with the girl in the corner seat of the middle aisle of the aircraft. She's kept her book down and is now staring at the staff. Somehow they start serving food and nobody comes to check the emergency exit. We're confused, but since the sound went away, we figure out it's nothing and I put my eye mask on again and the girl goes back to her book. Almost on signal, the sound starts again. So we call the steward once more and he assures us it's nothing and that he asked his manager, who asked the pilot, who told him it's normal. So I ask him, "Then what's making the sound?" And he goes, "I have no idea," and freaking walks away. It's all electronic. See the panel in front of the emergency exit? The pilot must have run a remote check from the cockpit. It'll be fine. My travel buddy reassures me and the girl in the middle aisle. By now, passengers in the rows behind us and in the left side rows of the aircraft are also painfully aware of this. It's all quiet and we're finally at peace when the sound comes back with a freaking bang. And now it's so loud that people 3 rows behind us are panicking. So we press the call button for the steward, who's busy serving snacks and apparently doesn't care about us dying. Suddenly, the girl in the middle aisle says, "Dude, is this from your headphones?" And I'm like, "What even? No!" And I show my travel buddy's headphones up in the air to gesture, how can they make this weird sound? And as I pick up my own headphones, I realize they're the ones ringing like the siren of death. Their noise canceling was on, and as soon as I switched it off, the noise stopped. We checked and the battery got corroded somehow. These are 8-year-old Bose that have been repaired twice, so you get it, but this has never happened before. Everyone around literally put their face in their hands or face-palmed and looked at me like I'm the dumbest person on the planet. Then we all laughed so loud that the people in business class stood up to see what's happening. I swear to God, some people would have opened that emergency exit and thrown me off the plane if they could. But yes, this is now a story for the world to laugh too. Whoopsie, yeah, this is another one of those stories where just be grateful that the company that you had around you took this in stride and did not in fact throw you off the plane. Data Ghost and L commented, "Obviously, headphones can drown out the environmental noise of a freaking airplane such that other passengers several rows down get worried, while the other doesn't go deaf when they have them over their ears. On corroded batteries too, which are known for their high energy output." Our next story is, today I effed up by accidentally turning my Roomba into a crime scene artist. So I, 28-year-old male, live alone in a tiny apartment with my cat, Muffin, and my trusty Roomba, whom I've named Sir Sucks-a-Lot. Last night, I decided to treat myself to a big ol' pizza. extra pepperoni, extra sauce, the works. I'm halfway through demolishing it on the couch when McMuffin, that little gremlin, decides it's time to puke. Not just any puke, a hairball the size of a golf ball, mixed with what I swear was last week's tuna treat, right on my kitchen floor. I'm lazy, so I figure, Sir Sucks-a-Lot's got this. I hit the start button, grab another slice, and zone out to Netflix. Big mistake. I hear the Roomba whirring, then this wet schlorp sound, followed by a high-pitched screech like it's possessed. I look over and oh my god, it's not just cleaning the hairball, it's painting with it. The little idiot's wheels spun out in the puke, smearing it in wild arcs across my hardwood. Then it hit the wall, reversed, and dragged the mess into perfect, bloody-looking streaks, like a toddler Jackson Pollock on a murder spree. I'm yelling, "Stop, you demon!" But it's too late. It zips under my couch, leaving a trail that looks like a crime scene tech would need to dust it for prints. Panicked, I grab a mop, but then I hear a thud. Muffin, spooked by the chaos, knocked over my pizza box. The Roomba, sensing fresh prey, charges straight into the sauce. Now it's got pepperoni stuck to its sensors, flinging red goo everywhere. My walls, my rug, even my dang curtains. It's a massacre. I finally catch it, flip it off, and just stare. My apartment looks like a slasher flick set, and Sir Sucks-a-Lot's sitting there, blinking innocently, coated in cat barf and marinara. I snapped a pic. Imagine a blurry Roomba with red streaks radiating out like a cursed sunflower, pepperoni dangling off it like evidence. My landlord's coming tomorrow for an inspection, and I'm 90% sure he'll think I killed someone. Send help! Or bleach. I'm not sure how much Roombas cost, I don't have one personally, but you may want to give serious consideration to just cutting your losses and getting a new one. That's pretty gross. Our next story is, today I effed up by getting emotional and possibly ruining my 10-year-old daughter's relationship with her friends after no one showed up to her birthday party. My daughter has never had a birthday party before. She's always struggled to make friends. She's really put herself out there and actually made friends with a group of girls, and I'm very proud of her. So when she asked for a birthday party this year, I was happy to oblige. Her birthday party was this past Saturday. We had decorated our place with balloons and stuff. We set up the food, snacks, and cake in the party packs that we chose together. My daughter kept straightening things up to try to make sure everything looked perfect. She was very excited. The only people who showed up to the party were the elderly neighbors that my daughter and I are close to, and a friend of mine and his fiancé. My daughter spent almost the whole day looking out the window, waiting for her friends to show up, and not one of them did. It was sad to witness. When the day came to an end, she cried in my arms, sad that not even one of her friends came. It was very hard to witness. She even went to bed earlier than her bedtime because she was so upset. I was really sad for her and found myself messaging the parents of the girls. I went on a rant telling them that it was really inconsiderate of them to not show up to my daughter's party when they said they would. My daughter was really looking forward to it, only for her friends to not show up, and she was left completely heartbroken. They could have the decency to let me know, at least. I then promptly blocked them. I unblocked them the next day after calming down and apologized for being overly emotional, but I think the damage had already been done. Well, thanks to my little blow-up, the friends that my daughter worked so hard to make are now avoiding her, and although my daughter says it's okay and that she'll make new friends, I know that she's pretty heartbroken. I'm now regretting and wondering if I could have had a much better approach. So the only thing that I'll say to this is parents react differently when in defense of their children. So, did you go overboard with your retaliation text? Probably so, but again, you saw how devastated your daughter was, and in that moment you see red and you want some kind of justice or retribution. So, I totally get that. Eternal Optimist 3P0 commented, "My son was invited to a classmate's birthday party in middle school. They weren't the best of friends. It was a couple of days after the last day of school. Apparently, about 6 to 8 boys were invited to a laser tag place. Dropped my son off, checked in with parents, and confirmed when to pick him up. Came back 2 hours later to my son, birthday boy, and his mom eating cake. No one else showed. On the way home, my son said he felt really bad for the kid and was really glad he went, even though he kind of knew his close friends probably weren't going to go. Since school was out for the summer, we never really found out why no one went." And Jiminash responded, "I was once the only classmate to show up. She was my best friend and I was so sad for her, but I gave her what I thought was the best gift in the world. A whole box of a treat similar to Kit Kats, so in the end, we both enjoyed the party." Our next story is, today I effed up by confessing my love to my best friend right before he moved away. So this happened last night and I'm still reeling from it. For context, I'm Riley, 19-year-old male, and my best friend Sam, 20-year-old male, has been my ride or die for the past 5 years. We met in high school, bonded over our interests like video games and horror movies. About 3 years ago, I realized that I was in love with him and couldn't bring myself to say anything, obviously. I figured, hey, I can handle this. I'll just admire from afar and suffer in silence like some type of drama. Then, yesterday, Sam dropped a bombshell. We're having coffee at his place and he goes, So, I'm moving this month to Norway near my family. And my idiot just stared at him. I thought he was joking, but no, he was serious. I spiraled. The rest of the day was a blur. We hung out like normal, but inside I was screaming, knowing that if I didn't say something now, I'd regret it forever. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? He rejects me, things get awkward, and he moves away. Also, it's not like we wouldn't contact each other, but since I have an important job at my family's small business, our contact has already been more limited than usual. So later that night, after a few beers, we were sitting on his apartment floor talking. He was laughing about something dumb I did, and I just blurted out, I'm in love with you. Silence. Absolute silence. The kind that makes your stomach turn. Sam just stared at me, and I immediately wanted to take it back. Maybe I could pretend I had a stroke, blame the alcohol, run away and start a new life? Then he laughed, but not in a mean way, more like a, oh my god, finally way. And then he said, you think I don't know that? I was shocked. Apparently everyone knew. Our friends, his sister, his grandma for some weird reason. The only person who didn't realize it was me. He admitted he's been waiting for me to say something for years. And then, before I could even process that, he leaned in and kissed me. Let me tell you, every romantic cliche about happy endings and crap, real, at least for me. My brain short-circuited. I forgot how to breathe. All I knew was that Sam was kissing me back like he'd been waiting just as long as I had. When we pulled away, I was trying to act chill, even though I'm the worst at hiding feelings. He just smiled and said, I feel like I just sobered up for this crap. So yeah, now I'm dealing with the fact that I could have been kissing him this whole dang time instead of suffering in silence. He's still moving, which sucks, but he made me promise that we'll figure it out. And after last night, I'd probably do anything to stay true to him. Also, I've always thought he was straight since he once benched about a girl all night long in high school. Guess I was a little off. I mean, I'm not sure if this is a happy ending or not. Homeboy's still moving away, but, OP seems to be somewhat satisfied, content with current position, so good for you. Our next story is, today I effed up by paying off my student loans and now I can't get a house. Clickbait title block. I had no other lines of credit open, so now I have no credit, no trustworthiness. In 2019, I had 2 loans from the federal government. One had a 6-month no-interest grace period and the other a 9-month no-interest grace period. For reasons not shared, I needed to not have any debt 1 year after graduation. This meant I rented the least expensive asbestos special lead paint apartment in town and had an air mattress for furniture. I mostly ate rice and peanut butter for calories and lost a fair bit of weight during this time. At 5 months and 30 days, I paid off my 6-month loan, and at 8 months and 30, I paid off my 9-month loan, 10 years early. That was fall of 2019. By March the following year, there was a pause on all federal loan interest, and I fully supported it. Around that time, I bought a used car for cheap from a dealer. I paid in full, but a mix-up in communication meant that they ran my credit, and it was $800 something. 5 years later, I'm trying to buy a house, and I've just been denied for not having any credit from the bank I've had a debit card with for 15 years. They signed me up for a credit card, and I just got not the card I signed up for, but a $500 limit starter card, quote, ideal for high school students learning finance. My credit is $600 now. I have significant investments due to my 401k, in the IPO, and no debt, but by refusing to play the game, I've been held back significantly. I consider myself fortunate to be where I'm at. I have an engineering degree and am good at what I do. I'm not really looking for pity, just sharing my mistakes so others can learn. In other news, I'll be following the subreddits for boosting scores and stuff. Also, Dave Ramsey is for people who have a problem with spending. Yeah, lesson learned. I mean, thank you for sharing from your experience so that other people don't have to go through this. It just goes to show you this isn't OP's fault, they just weren't given the proper guidance to prepare them for this situation. John Wolski commented, "You can do it. I've done it twice. I've paid off my student loans and credit cards, but by the time I saved enough for a down payment, all my credit had expired. I found a lender that did manual underwriting. It was a pain, sure. I had to gather evidence of paying years of bills and rent on time, etc., but it worked. Years later, I sold my house and moved across the country. I rented for a couple years and again had all my credit from paying my mortgage expired. I joined a credit union and they did manual underwriting when I bought again. Our next story is, today I effed up by getting so lucky that I wasn't asked back to a gig. Obligatory not today, but last year. I answered an ad to help out with the local high school's theater production. The actual job that I was hired to do did well, but this isn't about that. The production ran from Thursday to Sunday, one show each night. At intermission, there was a 50-50 lottery, with the other half going to senior scholarships. On Thursday night, at intermission, I bought 10 tickets for $5. I won. Pretty sweet feeling, was about $100 richer. On Friday night, I decide, what the heck, why not try again? And I do the same thing, 10 tickets for $5. Wouldn't you know it, I won again. High off the buzz of my second win and being a charitable guy, I suggested they donate it all. This earned me some applause. By Saturday night, the general public had heard what was going on. At intermission, there was a definite murmur in the crowd. My fiancé and my sister came, and we all did my usual bye, but none of us won. People seemed relieved by this. On Sunday night, I thought, wouldn't it be the funniest thing if I won again? So, same routine, 10 tickets for $5, same mood in the crowd. People were looking at me and all that. I won. Again. People groaned. Now I had a choice to make. I decided that I had the feeling of winning, and I had been charitable, but maybe it would be nice to give someone else the feeling of winning, so I suggested that they call another number. Well, I had bought 10 tickets, so they called another one of my numbers. People went nuts. Someone shouted, "Oh, come on!" The director suggested I donate the money again, but I took the cash, because I figured some spiritual force with a good sense of humor really wanted me to have it. People were not happy about this. When I walked out at the end, some lady booed me. It's about the same time this year, and I haven't been asked back. I'm sure there are several benign explanations as to why, but I'd like to think it's because they're afraid I have some lottery black magic. I've never won anything since. Even if you're playing this straight up, you've got to be aware of the optics and how this looks. Should have just donated the money, but hey, you do you. You won it fair and square. Math 80 commented, some years ago, there was a live televised prize draw during a break and play at a cricket match in New Zealand. There were, if I recall correctly, 6 prizes, mostly electronics I think, maybe a holiday, and entry was free, requiring simply answering a trivial question. The special guest sportsperson spins the barrel, and the first name drawn was, let's say, Arnold Beaumont from Leven. Small town, can't be 2 people with that name. TV host says, "Congratulations, Arnold, you've won," whatever was first prize. Now, second prize goes to, spin the barrel, second name, Arnold Beaumont from Leven. Cue confusion. Host says, "That's, unexpected. Not sure if the rules allow anyone to win more than one prize. Well, keep going, and we'll draw an extra name just in case." A few extra spins of the barrel. Third name, Arnold Beaumont from Leven. Signs of panic at this point. The 2 guys doing the draw clearly suspecting something dodgy. Host goes, "Well, draw another backup while we check the rules." Spin the barrel faster, for longer. Fourth name, Brian Clement, say from Bayswater. Relieved faces all around. "Okay, congratulations, Brian. You've won a prize. Not quite sure which one at this point. Let's see who's next." Spin, 5th time, Arnold Beaumont from Leven. And the 6th, if I recall correctly, they ended up drawing 10 names because 5 of the first 6 were the same guy, and he ended up winning 5 of the prizes. It turned out that he just sent in a crapload of entries. Freaking hilarious watching it happen live. And good work, Arnold, or whatever your name was. Our next story is, today I effed up by accidentally ordering a romance novel on my company's corporate Amazon account. I'm in a senior leadership role in my company and have access to our corporate Amazon account for purchases. You can't purchase digital copies of books, Kindle versions, on the app. You have to use the web browser to be able to transfer the digital copy to your Kindle or Kindle app. Since I have to use the web browser, I usually use the one-click option. I did this, but I clicked the wrong save passkey. Immediately, one-click purchasing on my company's business account. Of course, I immediately realized and returned it, but yeah, this is not at all embarrassing. You're welcome, COO and head of HR. who now get to see the photo of the book with the shredded shirtless alien dude on the cover. You caught the error immediately and fixed it. No harm, no foul, but I can definitely understand kind of that rush of embarrassment. But hey, everybody's got side hobbies, right? Salamantic Cormorant responded, "If applicable, I suggest using different web browsers for personal versus company purchases. One browser will never have your original ID saved, and the other will never have your company ID saved. I don't know what a passkey is." Our next story is, "Today I effed up by not reading OTC med bottle. TLDR, read the instructions of every single medication you take, even if it's over the counter. Especially if it's over the counter. Not so much a today, but an over several months F up. I take a daily antidepressant, every morning without fail. It's helped a lot over the last few years. Due to some recent GI issues, my doc suggested I take a fiber supplement. I got the powder kind and added it to my coffee every day. GI issues improved. Mood tanked. I assumed it was due to gestures, broadly all of this. I asked my doc to increase antidepressant dosage, no change. Restarted therapy, no change. Ran out of powder fiber, and the store only had pills in stock. While reading to determine dosage, I realized I should not take fiber for a certain amount of time after taking AM meds. I now take antidepressant in the AM, fiber at lunch, and I'm feeling much more like myself. Remember kids, even if you can buy something over the counter, you should still read the full label." Sage advice, if nothing else, just knowing what you're putting in your body. You don't necessarily need to dissect the medication, but at least be aware of like side effects and things like that. Vampy Rewolf replied, "The worst thing I found was antibiotics. I end up taking them to work to take with lunch, and some days never actually stop for lunch, or even breakfast Thursday or Friday. Take a probiotic with both my morning and evening meds, so have a couple hours of window to take antibiotics. Never mind that the antibiotics alone play heck with my morning antidepressant, so I feel like crap for a couple weeks after the antibiotics are done." Our next story is, "Today I effed up by falling down the stairs seeing the face of a newly disfigured coworker. All we knew before today was that our work colleague, Sue, went through a house fire and was hospitalized. No one in the office were too close with Sue, so we didn't know the extent of her injuries, only that it took her several months to recover. Today in the morning, I was entering the office when I saw my boss entering at the same time, so I ran up to him and started chatting about our project. I admit, I was pretty focused on discussing, and I was doing the thing where me and my boss was walking side by side and clogging the whole path. Whilst walking up the stairs, I hear a soft, 'Excuse me.' I later learned she also lost most of her speech functionality too. You can see where the F-up happens. I realized that I was blocking her way, so I quickly apologized and shifted to the side. But when I naturally looked behind me, she was literally one step away from me walking onto my step, so her face was about 20 centimeters from mine. It's really hard to put it into words, but imagine a face as a piece of paper. Her face is the paper crunched up and reopened and then shoved into one side and colored bright red. I was completely taken by surprise, as was my boss. I let out quite a loud "ah!" and felt my foot slip. I lost my balance and slid down half a flight of stairs and slammed my back into the wall. The angle was pretty lucky to not be significant, but I was still wheezing and gasping for quite a while. During which most of our coworkers heard my scream, came out, saw Sue, my boss, and me on the ground. My boss, being the kind man that he is, insisted on taking me to the hospital for a checkup. I was feeling pretty bad at the moment, so I agreed, and he drove me to the hospital. I returned in the afternoon after being cleared by the doctor and wanted to apologize to Sue since I didn't get the chance to when I left in the morning. But when I asked around, HR said that after I left, she, they think, started crying and left as well, and soon after sent an email wanting to resign immediately. I sent her an email somewhere along the lines of, "Hey Sue, glad you're well enough to be back in the office now. Sorry I didn't get a chance this morning to apologize. I was just a bit surprised. I hope you can reconsider leaving us." Yeah, I mean, look, you were jump scared, right? I don't think anybody has any control over how they react to being startled like that. So as long as you're sincere with your apology, the ball's kind of in her court whether or not she wants to accept it. But just kind of let her know, like, hey, I was just startled. It was more how close you were to me than anything else, and try to make her feel less bad about it. Zilnoznabor commented, I think it's important to stress to her that it was her proximity to you and you're trying to move out of the way that resulted in your misstep, whether or not that was the real reason. I suffered serious facial burning at the age of 2. At 59, I'm still getting asked, what happened to your face? I'm sure she's incredibly insecure and self-conscious about her scarring. Your kindness will go a long way. Weishaput666 replied, did you get used to the questions with age? Does it bother you still when people ask? Do you think to yourself something like, I bet they want to ask, when people ignore it and just interact with you in a normal way? I have a friend that has some scars on his face from an operation. He's kinda young and has developed some insecurities due to it. We talk sometimes about it and he told me he feels like a freak when people look at him a certain way. I try to tell him not to think that way, that people just have that reaction, not intentionally, and that they don't think that of him. At least most don't, but I see my words don't help as much as I want. I guess with age, you come to terms with it. I hate to see him telling himself these things, and I feel like I can't do anything. I feel like the best I can do is hope that he helps himself. Zilznabor commented to this, there are periods of time where I'll almost forget they're there. Then someone will ask and I'm brought back to reality. And then other times I'm painfully aware that I'm not as attractive as other women, but I have a great personality. Yes, a guy actually said that once. I also have scarring on my throat, so I'm asked if I've had a tracheotomy. Fun times. Yes, you can feel people staring. Some are bold enough to ask about them. For the most part, they're just a part of you, like your nose and ears. I hope your friend is able to find peace and know he's not a freak. Alright everybody, that's all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like and comment down below. And if you want to check out any of our other videos, click this video right here on the right. With that being said, I will see you all next time.